Shine your light, shine, shine, shine your light, shine, shine.
Hello, I'm Nancy Smith Mattox. I'm broadcasting from Little Rock, Arkansas, and our guest is from Augusta, Georgia. We're on WYTV7 in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm so excited today for this interview. This beautiful woman of God has been through so much and has created so much that's going to help so many people. I'm so excited. I'll introduce her in a second, but first I'd like to say that WYTV7 is a nonprofit. We do take donations, and we use the donations to extend our broadcast internationally all over the world, me and the other broadcasters. So it's really an exciting thing. Lots of people from all over the world and every country, they watch these broadcasts. And my prayer is that people get something out of my broadcast for Shine Your Light, because the purpose of Shine Your Light is to let everyone that I have as a guest shine their light and help other people in the world. So I'm really excited about this. When I introduce Miss Valerie, I think you're going to really enjoy this too. She has an awful lot to share, a lot in her background, and a lot going forward that I just think is going to be really, really beautiful and wonderful. Our guest is Miss Evangelist Valerie Gilchrist. She's from Augusta, Georgia. And I'm just so excited to have you today, Miss Valerie. She is the founder of Esthers Purpose. And she's a wonderful and a motivating entrepreneur. And Esthers Purpose is an experience. It's a conference and an experience. And it's by way of illustration, we see how issues of life are passed down through the generations and how to gain victory over them. And it's also rebuilding the community by addressing the deterioration of the family. So I'm just really excited to have you today, Miss Valerie. Who is Miss Valerie, Evangelist Valerie?
Well, hi, Nancy. It's so good to see you. And who I am, I'm a teacher. I'm a preacher. I'm the founder of Esthers Purpose. I'm also a wife, a mother, a grandmother. I was a military brat growing up, and I'm actually a veteran as well. So I'm all of those people.
Wow. As I was reading through your stuff, I did read that you spent 10 years in the Navy.
I did.
You have twin daughters who have learning disabilities. So I know that God's given you the talent to teach and to strengthen them and to make them successful, as well as you have 4 children and 6 grandchildren. So you're a busy person.
Yes, I am.
You got your Esthers Purpose that you're doing. So it's really exciting, and I'm happy that you're on here today because we're going to talk a lot about Esthers Purpose. But before we get into Esthers Purpose, I really want to talk a little bit about your background and where you've been. As I was reading through your information, you talked about, I'm not sure I can pronounce it, you had a neuromuscular disorder.
Yes.
Years ago. How do you name that? What's the name of it?
It's called myasthenia gravis.
Okay.
It's a neuromuscular disorder that actually attacks, there's antibodies in your body that's attacking you at your neuromuscular junction that causes you to be rapidly weak and fatigued. It can cause you to have double vision, blurred vision, slurred speech. You get weak rapidly. Just this little bit of time that you and I have been talking right now, I couldn't have continued this conversation with you.
Oh
I would have been, I'd have been that tired already. I was taking, by the 3 years into the process, I was taking $1,200 worth of medicine a month. Every 4 hours I was living by a clock, I was taking medication. The medication was so harsh on my body that I weighed 300 pounds. And I was in a power chair because I could not stand long. I would have to phase getting dressed. Once I took the shower, I was tired. I'd have to lay down for a couple hours just to finish the dressing process. My speech was very slurred. It was not clear like it is now. And so it was a very debilitating illness that I had. But in that process, God brought about what I do now.
And then you had 2 children, twin girls, that you had to take care of through all of this, right?
I did. I was diagnosed with it when they were 15. So unfortunately for them, it was during their high school years that I was that sick. So there was a lot of things that they could not do because I was unable to help them, because the energy that I did have, I used it to work.
Wow.
So yes, ma'am. So when I finished working, I had no energy left for anything else.
Wow. Well, you know, you're the epitome of a miracle.
Yes, ma'am.
God has done, and you're right here on Shine Your Light. It just amazes me. I'm just so overwhelmed with everything that you've been through, and I just think that it's awesome that you're on Shine Your Light and WYTV7, telling the world what you've been through and what God has done for you. One question I like to ask on all of my interviews: what has God done for you? But in your case, He's done so much, and I'm really impacted by what I read in your call to ministry, where you said you had every indication physically that you were dying. And then
Wow.
God, you were preparing for the transition into eternity, and God called you to ministry and told you to go and disciple His people the way His Son did it, and healed you as you went.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about that and elaborate that. And I know we're going to get to Esthers Purpose, because this is what's come. Esthers Purpose is what's come out of all of this that's happened to you, that God gave. It's just profound that you were preparing for the transition to eternity. And I mean, I'm like, it's just so profound to me.
Well, you know, I was diagnosed in 97. So that 3-year period of time was from 97 to 2000. And during that time, God did some miraculous things during that time as well, as I was studying His Word. And during those 3 years, I was going around teaching. Never thought about call to ministry. I was just being a Sunday school teacher. I was doing youth ministry with kids. We were taking them on youth retreats. We were having Bible studies. We were doing all kinds of things. And then as the adults saw what I was doing with the children, they were calling and asking me to come and speak. And I would do that. And again, what was awesome about what I would see God do is, while I was teaching, while I was ministering, which is, I'm going to use those words now. I didn't know that's what I was doing then, was ministering. But as I was doing what I was asked to do and speak and encourage people, I felt like there was nothing wrong with me. I felt like I was completely healthy. I was strong, didn't get short of breath, didn't get tired, anything. When I would finish, by the time I would get in the car and get home, I could not function. And so that anointing would come on me to do what He called me to do. I'm using those words now. I didn't know those words then. But the anointing would literally come on me to do what I would be assigned to do, to teach or minister or do youth or whatever, Bible study, whatever I was doing. And I could do it and didn't feel sick or anything. And so I was watching how powerful God was in my life then, and learning who He was, because in the Bible says that, you know, when we're in the presence of God, we're in His fullness of joy. We have that fullness of joy with Him. So I felt like I could do anything when I was in His presence. And so preparing for that transition into eternity was not a scary thing for me. I just felt like I was going to be with Him all the time, feeling great and strong, like I was when I would do the work that He was calling me to do.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So that is, it's just truly amazing. I don't think I've done many interviews on Shine Your Light, probably over almost 70. And I've never heard it put that way, with when you're in God's presence, you have the fullness of joy. But you know, if each and every one of us stop and think about when we're in our element where God wants us to be and tells us to be, it truly is a miracle, and it truly is just, we don't really feel any of the pain or anything like that when we're in the element. And it's just such an awesome thing, because our joy just rises. I oftentimes tell people, I'm not a minister, but I have a ministry. I've had years in credit unions helping people realize their financial dreams, and that was all helping people. And so when I retired, I'm like, what am I going to do now? Well, this is what I've evolved into, is helping people through the interviews and through letting people like you shine your light out into the world so we can help more people. So it's really exciting. I've just never had it put that way. And I really just got chill bumps when I read through your stuff, because I said, this is awesome. This is fascinating. You said that when you're walking your divine healing and minister to the brokenhearted and set the captives free is what you feel like you do.
Yes.
With now. So that's just fantastic too. So let's get into Esthers Purpose and talk about that, because we could talk about that for 15 minutes probably or so, or 20 minutes. But where did Esthers Purpose come from?
Well, what happened is in November of 2007, I was watching the news and was watching a report of a single mom who had actually murdered her children, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and she had murdered them. And I just stopped. It arrested me. And I was just listening to see what happened. And as I was watching, and I continued to follow the story of what was going on in her life and the things that had happened to her and what led up to that moment, and people that were interviewed that knew her. And as I was watching it, me being a single parent for 15 years myself, my husband, Bobby, and I, we've been married for 21 years now. But for 15 years of my children's life, I parented them alone. 8 of those years in the military. And so I know the struggle of being a single parent, and you're the only one there that can help. And when you have children like mine that have learning disabilities, all of the time I would have to go to the schools and spend at the schools and find creative ways for them to learn was difficult for me. I wasn't an educator, not scholastically. And so I understand that when you work and you're tired. And when I got out of the military, I worked 2 jobs. I worked a first shift job Monday through Friday, a second shift job Tuesday through Thursday, and third shift Friday, Saturday. And so I was always working and was extremely tired, and I get it. And so when I was listening to all that was going on and all the troubles that she had, and then listening to some of her background and understood my background, that there were things that were going on with her that if we were a community the way that we should be, and we were caring like we need to be and loving like we should be, we would have seen that there were things that were going on with this young woman. She was 22 at the time, where we could have helped her. But a lot of times, we're so into whatever it is that we're doing. We're not community-based like we should. We've got our own issues. We don't see people that are hurting. And a lot of times hurting people don't look like what we think they look like. We think hurting people they're crying or depressed. Hurting people can be angry. Hurting people can be very disagreeable. Hurting people can be very unlovable. And so if you only see those characteristics and not see behind them, then your heart of compassion doesn't come out to be really wanting to help. So there were opportunities, even people who were interviewed who saw things that were going on with her, and I'm not blaming them, but there were opportunities that I could hear that people could have stepped in and maybe could have helped her. And so when I saw all of what was going on and knew what was going on with my own life, the struggles and frustrations that I had as a single parent, I wanted to then help, and I was trying to find out, how would I help? What could I do to help people in similar situations? And not just that, and I don't mean similar as far as kids, I mean just similar as far as pressures and situations of life going on that you can't handle. And so Esthers Purpose was birthed out of that, of really showing the issues of life, what happens when you go through things in life and we don't process them well. And we have a lot of pent-up emotions. There are traumatic things that happen to us in life. There are a lot of people walking around with PTSD and don't even know it from trauma that's happened to them in life, whether it was child abuse, whether it was molestation, whether it was rape, whether you witnessed a loved one die, whether you had a fire in your home, you were in a bad car wreck. There's a lot of things that people don't realize that trigger those same responses. And when it's not diagnosed, when you haven't talked to anybody, when you can't put words to how you feel, and you're frustrated a lot, well, then a lot of things come about. Depression comes about, anger comes about, things come about that actually cause people to really not even want to be in relationship with you. It causes you not be able to keep jobs. It'll cause you to disconnect from family, and will have you isolated. And so because I was so accustomed to a lot of those feelings raising my children by myself, I'm real sensitive to it. And so as my Esthers Purpose conferences, what they do is I talk about my life. And when I talk about my life, it connects people to me. They see that I'm genuine. They get to know me while I'm on stage. And when I finish this, and you've seen it yourself, when I finish talking about me, I then go into the presentation of putting on those attributes of loss and anger and depression, and show people what that looks like masked, because some people can walk around every day and look like they're perfectly fine, but they're really not underneath. And
Yes.
so that's where Esthers Purpose came from.
Yes, ma'am. Well, you know, that was in 2007, you said?
November of 2007. Mm-hmm.
And here we are in 2018, so we just passed a 10-year anniversary
Yes.
of Esthers Purpose. And I believe that Esthers Purpose is even more important in this day and time than it was 10 years ago.
Yes.
We have tripled and quadrupled and 1,000 times over worse things now that people are carrying and harboring. And, you know, my prayer every day, I pray for our country. I pray for this, for people to start loving each other again, because it all is a matter of that. And if we just stop being so self-centered and start worrying about other people, then we can help prevent some of this stuff that's happening, because people just need an ear sometimes. They just need to know they're not alone in how they feel. And, you know, we just had that most recent incident of that lady out in California running off a cliff with 7 of her kids in the car. And I'm like, what causes that? How can that happen? How can someone become so anguished that they want to take all their children with them and just run off a cliff? And they said she backed up, stopped, and gunned the car and ran off the cliff. Like, you know, why does this kind of stuff happen, when really, if we would all be helping each other like we should be, like the Bible tells us to do, and like Jesus did, then we could help prevent a lot of this stuff. And I think love and help would just really remedy a lot of situations in this day. That's why I think Esthers Purpose is even more important now than it was 10 years ago. It's just because everything's just so worse. Wow, that's really interesting about Esthers Purpose. So tell us a little bit about the conference and how that works, where you do that. Do you do it in only churches, or are there women's groups or domestic violence places, or how do you get the word out about Esthers Purpose?
Well, word of mouth is one, of course, the most powerful way to get it out. I will do it because it's a mobile ministry. I can do it anywhere. I actually do an illustrated sermon after I talk about my life and share, and kind of get to where I know the audience is open and receptive. And then I start doing the illustrated portion of it. So it's mobile, so I can carry all of it with me in my vehicle and set it up on a stage where people will see it, and really just walk them through the process of it. So there's no limit where I can go. I go to churches, I've been to schools, I'll go to businesses, I'll go wherever anyone wants me to go. I have a women's conference, matter of fact, that I'm going to do in a few days. And I'm just going to do a speaking portion of it. But everything that I do, Esthers Purpose is going to come out of it some type of way. And so what I want to show people is, when you were talking about, you know, if we would show more love to people, it's really difficult to love anyone when you don't love yourself. You have to love you and honor you first before you have the capacity to love anyone, even your own children. And so that mom that went over that cliff, and the mother who murdered her children, and, you know, and those things like that we just think are so horrific and unnatural, because we think, wow, that's a mom. How does a mother who carried these children in her body and birthed them out and nursed them, how does a mother do that? But if we understood what depression really looks like for someone, when you're really in a deep depression and you're really lost and you don't feel like you have any hope and any help around, for you to even just talk about you so that somebody can really hear you. A lot of times people walk around and it looks like they're perfectly fine and they feel like they are invisible. That because what is invisible is their pain, their struggle. So if we're not sensitive enough to pick up those types of things, but you know, most of us are so full of our own daily life that we don't see it, we don't feel it. And so it's really easy to overlook it and then be shocked that it was your neighbor, it was your coworker, it was your friend, it was your church member, it was your family member. We just don't see it a lot of times because we're not sensitive to it, because we're in such a busy world now that we're not community based like we used to be. Everyone is very individual.
Absolutely. Wow. That is so true. I remember coming up through my career at the credit union in Florida. I can remember coming up through there and can remember the community. I mean, it was always a community. Everything that I did my whole career, 25 years there, was to do nothing but to create better community and communicate with people and help them.
Yeah.
It was truly a community. And, you know, churches were like that too in the old days. A lot of churches aren't like that either now.
No.
You come in and they judge you more by how you're dressed or how you look, or and you know, it's just really sad. There's been a deterioration there. So that's why Esthers Purpose is so important for us to get the word out and let people start to understand that we do need to rebuild this community of love, so an understanding. How does Esthers Purpose bring deliverance to conference participants?
Well, what it does is, as I was saying earlier, because I share my life and I get really detailed about my life, the things that I've been through. There is nothing that I've been through that I'm ashamed of. It's part of who I am, is what created me to be who I am, to do what I do. So I'm very transparent about my life. So as I'm talking about my life, I can feel the audience as they're connecting into what I'm talking about. And so once I gain their trust, and that trust is gained by me being transparent, by me talking about the things that I've been through in my life, good and bad and really, really bad. Things that a lot of people won't talk about. They're too ashamed to talk about them. And the way the Lord uses me a lot of times is there are things that have happened to me that were really bad that I don't necessarily remember because I don't meditate or muse over them. But when I'm doing a conference and I'm around people that are sad and disheartened and depressed, it'll just draw things out of that well out of me, and it'll come out, and I'll hear myself saying things. And even the team that works with me, there was one I did at New Beginning Ministries, you know, where our bishop is Hezekiah Presley Jr. I did one there, and something came out about my life that the people who travel with me and do Esthers Purpose, they've been with me for years. And a lot of them, even before I started Esthers Purpose. And when they heard me talk about it, they said, we've never heard you talk about that. And I was like, yeah, you know, that's something that was so long ago, I had forgot. But at the end of that conference, I had one of the largest altar calls I've ever had. And the interesting thing about it was older women in their 70s and 80s, women who had been through some traumatic events in their life that they weren't allowed to speak about. Well, because I said it, and I spoke about it, it grabbed them. And so when I came down for altar call, I had a whole group of older ladies from 70 to 90s, in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, who came down that were just crying and hugging on me. So as you do that, you know, they'll open up, they'll see it, they'll hear it, and they'll cry about it for the very first time. And that's where deliverance comes from. Because what happens is, for deliverance to happen, you got to go back to the event. And that event might have happened 20, 40, 60, 80 years ago, it could have happened. And what will happen during the conference is, as I'm talking about my life and sharing things that happened, it'll take that person all the way back in their mind, and it'll make them feel like it is just now happening. And that's the way it has to feel. So deliverance can come. And right at that moment, and we're doing altar call, and I love on them, and I hug on them, and I pray for them, and they're crying, and I'm crying with them. And so they feel like, you know, this person really knows how I feel. They've been through the things that I've been through, and she's okay. She's lived through it, and she's talking about it. And then that gets them talking about it. And you don't have to wear a scarlet, letter. And people can know your story and you can be okay. You don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to hide it anymore. It's a part of who you are. And then as they do that, then that's how the deliverance takes place. And now at the conference, a lot of times family members are there with them, friends are there with, who never knew anything about it. And now revelation comes, oh, that's why grandma acts like that. That's why dad acts like that. Oh, that's why my wife acts like that or thinks like that. Or my husband, because we have men that come to the conference too. And one of the most awesome things to do is watch a man go through it. Because, we're so used to us crying and falling apart. And, but men, you don't see them very openly and publicly do that. And so they'll do it as well. And so then their wives are starting to see that some of that anger that they see in their husbands is really fear. It's fear-based of, the things that have happened in life, and someone may be finding out about it, or how do they even talk about it? And so all of those things come out in a very open but loving environment where we're all feeling pain. So the one thing that we all have in common, no matter how it happened, is pain. And so being unified in a group of people that have been in pain, and we know that everyone knows how I feel. We might not have, came about it the same way, but we feel that hurt. And then deliverance comes out of that. I go back in my mind, what happened, I feel the pain, and I can come out on the other side of it and know that I'm okay.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so that's what happens. When deliverance happens, that's what's next, is that people,
yes,
that they can think about this and speak about this and release it.
yes.
Because, we hide things in our mind all the time. All the time we do that. All of us do. All of us have had past experiences that we hide and that we don't want to face or talk about. But when we hear a person like you, who God is definitely speaking through you, then it just really makes you open up, and then you can release whatever's causing your fear, which is just a fantastic thing. And that's interesting that pain is the common denominator.
Yes.
We don't think about that. Our pain is so recessed and so hidden and so forgotten about that we don't even bring it to the forefront ever anymore until we go through a conference like yours where we open up and talk about that and can really help. That can really help. So what are you thinking about doing to make the community bigger for Esthers Purpose? Because it definitely needs to be bigger than what it is.
Yes.
And with the impact that it has on communities, what's your plan to reach more communities?
Well, what I do is, the more conferences I do, the more people talk about the conferences. They go back to their jobs, they go back to their homes, they go back to their friends. They talk about the conferences, and the conferences get bigger because some people always bring other people and say, you need to come hear her. And so a couple of things can happen. They can share it themselves to the point where they might be able to help someone else. But most of the time what happens, they want to bring them to the conference because they want them inside that experience of what happens in there. And it's a safe place. And they knew it was a safe place for them, so they want to bring others to that same safe place. And then when a family member or a friend or a coworker sees a difference in someone's life, well, what happened? What happened to you? You used to walk around and you were very closed, or you were very shy, or it looked like you were just angry all the time. And what people don't understand is, where anger comes from is fear. When you see someone really angry, they're really afraid. And you've got to get to the root of why they're afraid. What are they afraid of? And a lot of times what we're afraid of is somebody finding out about our past, the things that we've been through that we don't really want anybody to know about, because there's shame a lot of times attached to whatever it is. And so anger comes out as almost a way of keeping people at a safe distance where you don't get close enough to me, where you might find out something I don't want you to find out.
People are ashamed.
Yeah, they're ashamed. And so that's how deliverance happens. And that's how community, it'll get bigger and bigger. The more people come, the more people share, because I can't, I'm one person. I can't reach everybody myself, but the people who come to the conference, as they leave, they'll impact other people's lives. Because now people say, wow, you've changed. What happened to you? Oh, I went to this conference and here's what it was about. And here's how it affected me. And here's how I dealt with it. Because the conference is actually 2 days. There is the Friday night event where I do the illustrated sermon. And then we have day 2, which what we do is we do the following Saturday morning, where now I'm teaching on that Saturday morning how to maintain what you got Friday night. Yes. So I don't let you just leave Friday night with all of this and then go, okay, so what do I do now? So what I do is I bring you in Saturday morning, give you a little refreshment, some coffee, some pastries, and then we have another conversation about how now to continue to live this life. Because you can't live it the way you did prior to Friday night. You've got to change what you're doing. And you've got to know your triggers. You've got to know the stuff that somebody might say that'll bring up something from your past and how to deal with that. You've got to now have a vision for your life. You're not just living for today. Now you can now that block is gone, you can see further down the road. You know what? I really want to do this. And then you'll start making goals. And then you've got to set boundaries for yourself. Things that, because of what things have happened in my life, I can't get in this kind of environment. I can't be around these type things. I can't even there might even be some people I can't be around because it'll bring that side back out of me. So I've got to just make a firm decision that I want to stay in this place. And so to stay in this place, this is the vision. Here's where I want to go. Here are the boundaries around me. Here are the goals for me to get there. And then, and the better you get, there's going to be a lot of people who probably aren't going to be around you anymore. Well, and you got to be okay with that.
Yes, yes. Well, I just want to give another plug for WYTV7. I hope you're enjoying this interview, and I'm praying that it will go international and that Esthers Purpose will be able to help more and more people. And it's all about unmasking your true identity. I'm really excited about that. WYTV7 is a nonprofit. We do take donations. If you'd like to plant a seed, we would love that. The money goes toward broadcasting all of our broadcasters internationally on the international marketplace. So it's very, very exciting, and no donation is too small. $5 goes a long way for promotion. So anyway, our guest is Miss Evangelist Valerie Gilchrist. We've been talking about Esthers Journey, Esthers Purpose, and I'm so excited. We're almost out of time. And in closing, I would just like to say that I want to read something from Miss Valerie's information that she sent me. She says, communities survive when families survive, and isn't that the truth?
Yes.
If the family unit is intact, there's much more survival rate, and it can spread to the communities. What we do with Esthers Purpose, what she does with Esthers Purpose is she talks about her pain, her passion, and her purpose, and it actually turns lives around. So when you get a chance to attend an Esthers Purpose conference, please go. You're going to be hearing more about it. I'm going to be advertising out the wazoo for this, and because I want more and more people to hear about this. I'm really excited. I've attended it myself, and it's very profound and very eye-opening. It does open up your heart, and it gets you. So I'm so excited. And Miss Valerie, I thank you so much for being with us today. And would you like to have any closing words?
Well, Nancy, what I want to say is thank you so very much for inviting me to come. Thank you for, allowing me this opportunity on your platform that you have to let people know about Esthers Purpose and what we do to get more people involved with it and affect the community that they live in. So thank you so very much. I so appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed it, and I know my audience is going to enjoy it too. So thank you so much.